one of the big goal is to just like talk about sales and to have you like learn something new and just kind of take away something that's useful for you to implement in whatever that you're working on. So like during the whole session, feel free to make use of the chat. Like if you have any question in between when Felix will be talking, then you can just like pop the question on the chat, and then after each chunk, then he can answer it. And this is aimed to be like super interactive and useful for you. So feel free to ask any question that you have. So I think before we start, I'm just curious to know like why are you interested in joining this sales session, or have you joined any other like sales session before? Like, is there something that you're hoping to take away from today? You can put it to the chat so that and if you're in like, some people did not introduce themselves, maybe you're working in some of the sales role, or you're like startup founders, and there's some reason that you wanted to join, just wanted to like get some idea about like what is some of the sales problem or question that you have, so that when Felix explained, then he can kind of customize the presentation a little bit to fit and be helpful for everyone. So you can just share it on the chat of like, is there any common problems that you have, or any question that you have. So yeah, just make use of the chat, don't be shy. Hello, welcome. So I will give a very quick introduction about myself, and then I'll let Felix to introduce himself, and then we'll go through what we are going to go through today. Basically, it's going to be like three main chunk. Three main part of the session today. Number one is about like a framework that you can apply in your when you're doing sales, and then the second one is about outreaching, and the third one is about like how do you measure your sales performance. So super excited to hear that. Being a founder, sick of traditional solutions from salespeople I work with. Great. I think that's also probably one of the problem that a lot of people feel. Amazing. So very quick introduction about myself. I heard somebody was saying that they're also part of Techstars. So there's two main things that I do. Number one, I'm part of a company called Techstars. It's an accelerator program based in the States, and we run about 55 accelerator program around the world. And I'm helping to support the community team, startup community events in Greater China. So that's kind of one thing that occupied my time. And then another thing is, a few months ago, I have started movement called a 1% movement, and basically it's inspired by my own struggles and the struggles that I saw people around me having, which is they're not like really excited or happy with what they're doing, their work whatsoever. So the mission of the 1% movement is to inspire 1 million people to grow 1% daily. And that's been also taking a big chunk of my time to learning how to spread the message of that. So that is a little bit about me. Yeah. So Felix, you wanted to like, before I have Felix introduce him, I wanted to share with you like, why are we talking about sales today? Because so I've been running startup events, community events in the last 2 years. And a lot of times when I run events in China or even in Hong Kong, I realize that when I talk with a lot of even founders or people who want to start their own business, kind of sales is something that a lot of people overlook, or they are not as aware of it. But then it's just that I also realized that sales is just basically around everything that we do, right? It's not just about the sales department in the company, but literally sales is something that we do every day. And but I feel like just not as many people were talking about it. or sharing about it. And even the events that I saw that's been running, there is not as many sales topic events that's going on. I don't know if it's just me not seeing it, but like within the startup events space, I don't see that a lot. So that's why I was curious to ask if you've like also participated in some of the other sales, like, I don't know, webinar or other events that you find helpful. So anyway, I will have Felix to introduce himself.
All right. How's it going, everyone? I saw some of you guys turn on your video and then turn off your video, but I'm like, I want to see all your lovely faces. I don't know if you guys are maybe in a different time zone or anything, but here I'm actually from Vancouver, so currently it's 6:40 a.m. So if I can turn on my video, you guys have no excuse not turning on your video. So I'd love to see our lovely faces.
Yeah.
Okay, so a little bit about myself. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna pull up my slides. Give me 1 second here. I'm gonna share my screen here. All right. You guys can see my screen?
Yeah, I can.
Yes,
I think so.
Cool. So yeah, go ahead. I mean, going forward in the future, I mean, throughout the presentation, feel free to use the chat to interact with me. I can see what you guys type because I'm sharing my screen. I don't actually see much of your faces a lot. I don't see all of you from a full screen. So I'm going to rely on the chat to interact with you guys. And really, like Bron said, I really would like to make this more of a interaction other than like a webinar style. Like it's not going to be as fun, right? So definitely I want to make it as fun as possible. Make this as a fun section that we can all learn together, share with each other. Not like a one-way kind of teaching. Like I love teaching, but I also love interacting with people, right? So okay, give me 1 second. Okay, let me pull up my chat, make sure I set everything up. Okay, so Bronze quickly talked about what we're going to cover today. These are some fraction of something that I learned over time, the past 6 months myself. So really some framework that I kind of learned from and consolidate in a way that you guys can absorb. I think it would make a lot of sense when it comes to what really sales is to me and how I think sales could help you guys to grow your sales. A two-step framework from identity technique, right? And tracking your sales performance on budget, something that I know I'm thinking if I were to put myself on your shoes as a founder, as you know, I saw a lot of founders here, right? How can you really track your sales performance on budget, right? If you were to do sales yourself, how do you know if you're doing good, if you're not doing good, something like that, all right? You guys can hear me, right? I can see someone is typing that they can't hear.
No, we can hear you.
Okay, sounds good. Cool. And then third part, I would cover a little bit of some outreach strategies that I kind of learned along the way that I feel would also help you guys out with sales, not only relying on marketing coming in with inbound leads, right? So these are the main three things that I'm gonna cover today. We only have 1 hour. Like there's so much I want to share, but I'll just focus on these three topics today. Okay.
Yeah. And I think we will take a pause like every session so that you can like interact, ask question, and
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, at any time, Bronze can help me to track some questions that you guys want to ask. Then we can have a little bit of my own thoughts and share from there.
Yeah.
Okay. So a little bit of my background. I grew up in Hong Kong. I moved to Vancouver, Canada, when I was the age of 16. And before that, for the longest time, I have been in the tech mind, right? Like with computer science. I studied computer science I got 2 degrees, one from Simon Fraser University, one from Zhejiang University, and I've worked in a tech startup for about 4 years as a product manager before I started this journey as a salesperson. or as a closer. I call myself a closer, right? So I'm currently a sales support manager for a B2B team in the global online education. It's an online education organization based in Vancouver, and we teach us in. I mean, what the product that I sell, they teach us in sales. We have all kinds of products that also teaches copywriting, and right now with B2B side, I'm helping out with advisory board, helping founders to scale up. Right, so I've been in B2C sales in online educations for the past years. I recently transitioned to B2B, so I'm more familiar with B2C sales majority, and I have pioneered a fully remote team of 20 closers myself with 2 other managers. I'm mostly involved in the technology side, as I have that tech background, setting up the CRM, setting up the tech side of behind the scene to help out with kind of getting a remote team together in one place and actually run together. And my team has generated over 500K US dollars in revenue over the 6 months that I was with the team. Okay, so that's a little bit of my background. So I would like to talk about what they really want to get, what they want you to get from this presentation. And it's really simple. I want to provide at least 1 tips that you can apply for your business right away, right? Something that is practical, not like super like theoretical, but like something that you're like, like that makes sense, right? That you guys can take away. And I've seen a lot of, is there, I have a questions like, is there anyone in this room, type in the chat, that you guys are actually working sales, like actively working sales, or your role is actually a salesperson? Can you type yes or no in the chat? Okay. We have quite a few people who are actively working in sales. Good. That's true, right? In the end, it's about sales when you're pitching to startup. So I think that's why a lot of your title is not sales, but you may be a founder, you might be a co-founder. You guys are wearing multiple hats, right? You guys need to do this yourself sometimes, and you guys always thinking of way to. Yep. Sorry.
Yeah. We've also got people doing business development.
Right. Business development, sourcing, closing. Yep.
And when you say yes, is it mainly like B2B or is it B2C sales that you are doing?
That's a good question.
Okay.
B2C, both. Okay, a lot of both. Okay. Interesting.
Cool.
Okay, well, I will do my best to customize these presentation as much as you do, as I really don't know what to expect when I came in. So a lot of the presentation might be more of a refresher for you guys, but also hope to give you some different perspective of what sales is to me and how it could help you to more of thinking about what helps you rather than techniques, right? So that's really come down to the very first part of the presentation. What I talk about is the 2-step frameworks that I personally found over the 6 months that I'm with the team, what works and what doesn't work. This comes from experience myself for the past 6 months. And the very first question I want to ask in the group is that when you think about sales, when you think about a salesperson, what is the one thing that you come of your mind right away? Like if you can put a adjective, or if you can describe what a salesperson is, what would be that word? Very talkative, okay. Pushy, persuasive, coaching, helping, okay. Face of the company. Oh wow, okay, that's interesting.
Strategy, interesting.
Strategy, building trusting relations. Frontline soldiers, I like that. Someone private messaged me on that. Trustworthy. Okay, we got a really good mix of answers there. But I could tell a little bit of my own perspective for salesperson before I become a salesperson myself. Well, I work in tech for quite a while, right? And what I realized, what I always have that paradigm in my head, I'm like, salesperson are always that kind of person who always come to my place trying to sell me something, right? They will cold call you, they will go into your email, send you some random emails, send you some random calls. You're like, what? Like, what do you want this time, right? That was the paradigm I had before I joined as a salesperson. And for the longest time, I hated salesperson. Like, I don't like they approach me. So this is an identity problem, right? For anyone who are new to sales, I found a lot of closers that I work with, even though they call themselves closers, but that's how they project themselves as, right? They are the person who are pushy. They are the person who are always chasing after someone, or who are pushy, right? Some very talkative, or yeah, it's also frontline soldiers, right? So I think the most important thing that any closers, if anyone who are new to sales, is that they really need to change their identity. They need to identify who they are before they focus on the techniques side of things. Because what happened is when you put the techniques first, then that's actually how it causes people think you are a salesperson. You are that traditional snake oil, like you're trying to pitch me something, right? So I often say sales, if we can imagine ourselves being a sales, instead of being a sales, we are doctors, right? I like referring ourselves as doctors, meaning that what a lot of people say already, right? Coaching, helping, building trust relations. Well, doctor does that, right? I think what I want to talk about when you think about doctor, what do they do is first they diagnose, right? They will ask, what is the problem with you? What's wrong? Like, what is there anything that I could help you? So majority of what they do is they listen and ask questions. So when you see someone who is very talkative, what do you feel? What is the overall feeling that you have? It's likely wow, this guy talks a lot. Wow, like they don't even listen to me. Do they really understand me? Right? Do they, like, I don't even have a chance to talk. Are you trying to push me something into my throat? Like, I need this, right? So the biggest difference as a good closers, in my opinion, versus a traditional one is that the good one are willing to listen and ask questions. And they're very sensitive to what they can help with whoever they're talking to, right? They do what's best for the patient. Now, I'm not saying that you just treat everyone that you talk to as a patient, but just an analogy, right? Like when you talk to someone, of course, you can talk to them about their problems, but more of what is it that in their head that they're always trying to solve. For example, if you're talking to founders, right? If you're talking to someone if you're pitching to a business, right? The person they're talking to, look at their roles, look at what they do. What is it always in their head that they have to deal with? Whoops, sorry, my bad. My tablet just having some weird thing. Anyways, so you will always speak their language. So in B2C, it's fine. B2C could be a little bit more casual, right? You can talk to them about their daily life. B2B could be a little bit different when you're talking about more business problems rather than personal problems. But you will still go down to one thing is, what is that one thing that they're always trying to solve? And do whatever that you can offer can solve the problem. Is there any connections from there, right? And third, it's really confidence and knowledgeable. Doctors are very confident. Like if you see a very rookie, doctor, right? You look at them and they're like, actually, I don't know what to do. Okay, and then they're like shaking their hand and they're mumbling, right? What do you feel? So it's really the same thing. As a closer, it's not like you're trying to only sell them something, but more importantly, you're very knowledgeable about the industry that you're speaking to, and you're very confident coming out from your mouth, right? And that doesn't come if you don't have a true identity of who you are. And this is really, really crucial. It coming out from your throat, right? And it has a lot of practice, a lot of identity shift. If you are not a salesperson before and now you have to take on the hat to do that, you have to look at yourself not as a salesperson. You have to look into yourself as someone who's knowledgeable, who can solve people's problem, and you need to have the confidence in yourself. And last but not least, you need to have full conviction of what you can offer, right? What I mean by that is that whatever product they're selling, maybe for a lot of you guys have your own product, then you probably don't have as much as a problem as this. But a lot of closers, if they're doing it full time, they probably are selling different products, or they're selling a products that they don't know much about or they didn't create, right? So generally, when you take on a product, you don't really have much conviction in it, meaning that you don't know what the product is about. You don't know what the product is trying to solve. You don't know how that could help. And the more important, do you believe that this product can help the person? That belief is so important, right? And what I'm doing right now, whatever I'm selling right now, is that first, I've been through the program myself. I know it helps. I am the product of the product. So the conviction is generally there. So when you are talking to any prospect, you really have to be very clear about what you offer and the conviction that you have, like, I can solve your problem. Like, you don't want to come across like, I don't know if I can solve this problem. And then like, can I don't know, right? You have to come in as a frontline soldiers. I like that line, that, despite how inexperienced you are, you're not sure if your product is fully, developed. It doesn't matter. Tech startup doesn't matter. You can solve their problem. You have what it takes to help them. That is the most important. You need to deliver that message very clear to anyone that you talk to. So if without that, then you already lose part of the battle already. I can that's the speaking from my own experience. Okay. And what I really think closers is like doctors in steroid. Like, on top of the person that you're being knowledgeable and all that, they're also doing follow-ups, right? They are also following up, making sure the patient is getting what they need, right? They almost to the certain point of like, they have so much conviction that the product can help them, despite the patient doesn't feel like they need help. They will just go help them out. Like, look at this, like, this could help you out. Like, I have no doubt, and here's the why, right? Now, is that pushy? That's the question to you. Is that pushy? If I'm to do follow-ups? I said one, no. At times. So this is the thing. When you're the doctor, when you're following with the patient, is that pushy? Versus if you're a salesperson, you're following up with getting the sales. Is that pushy? If that makes sense. These are two different mindsets. So if you see yourself as a doctor, you're just following up and see if there's anything that this product, like, did they make a decision to help themselves, to solve their own problem? Then you can help them out, right? This is the mindset that I see can help out so much with closers, is that you're not being pushy. You are following up to see if there's anything that you can help them further. with whatever knowledge. It's not the product, it's your knowledge, the confidence that you have. Is there anything that whatever that you offer them can help them out? So your identity is always comes first. If today you are doing sales, but you don't know what that means to you, this is a big problem. You won't do well in sales. Okay, I'm having someone privately message me again. He said, the way patient is unaware of the disease, the customer is also unaware of the need. Unless the need is aroused, sales marketing makes the mind of customer to make a purchase. That's right. So as a doctor, you make aware that you have the disease. Like sometimes when we are when we are doing certain things, when we're not feeling well, we ignore it. We thought that's okay. Yeah, that's fine. It will last forever. It will pass a few days. It will be fine. Right? Those what patients does sometimes. Right? When you're sick, you just ignore it. But if you're the doctor, you show up and tell them like, hey man, like you have the symptoms right here that I found over time. You need help. I have the medicine. I have the treatment that can help you out. Right. So you have to make them aware exactly what Usama is saying. How do you make them aware of this? And actually they can see you as the expert, not the salesperson, the expert that can solve the problem. You know what the heck you're talking about in terms of their problems and how they could get things from you that is a good advice that they could take away to help them out. Right. And once you have the identity solidified, then you can go ahead with the techniques of it. All right. The techniques is more of what do you have to say? What kind of knowledge do you need to obtain? What kind of framework should you use to, to put in an agenda for a call? How do you become more professional by setting agenda? How do you sound with your tonality more of confidence, right? Those are techniques, but that should come after. And in fact, I would say identity, you always have to remind yourself who you are. Like you can't lose your identity. Because what happens sometimes when you guys in the zone as the salesperson, you're like, sale, go. And so easily you forgot your doctor frame, you become that salesperson frame. You're like, I just need sales. I need to fulfill my quota. All right. I need to do this. I need to get sales. No sales, I'm gonna die. The business is gonna be over. Right? Yes, that is a reality. But at the same time, this customer cares about your business going out of business. They don't get it. So you always have to stay in the frame of I'm the expert. I can help you out. This is the identity part I want to share. Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions?
I think this is awesome, because I think when I first learned about like in sales, it's actually identity first and then like technique second. It's actually like very counterintuitive, because what we usually look at sales is like, what are the hot tricks that can help me to close the sales? What are the 101 techniques that can help me to close the sales? But I still remember like a few years ago, I was actually in a sales job, and what I learned was just about the product information. But in fact, I myself don't truly believe that thing can help people, but I'm just pushing people with the information. So and that was that highly affected the conversion rate of whether people buying or not. So so I think this might be helpful if you're like a startup founders, and then maybe some of the salespeople in your team is not performing, then maybe like kind of inside them, they might not realize that they are actually have some holdback, either with who they are, like as in like being a doctor, that they are actually helping people with the company's product to solve the problem. Or they just kind of have maybe some negative association with sales, like it could happen. So anybody have any like similar experience that they wanted to share, any ideas with that? Because I think like talking about identity is not as common, not as a common conversation that we have usually in a discussion. So anybody wants to share anything before we move on to the next one?
Oh, this crowd is really, really quiet. They're very shy. Come on, guys. I want to hear from you guys.
Yeah.
Feel free to speak up. It's not about sales. People really look into. Yep.
Okay. Okay. I mean, we can jump onto the next one, which is more like tactical.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. So, another thing I want to cover today is some metrics that we could cover, and I strongly believe that what get measured get improved, meaning that you need to put things in numbers, right? If today numbers not a big thing for you, you would need to start doing this, right? So before I go into the metrics that I track that I love looking at, I would like to talk about kind of the structure that my team has been using in order to maximize the sales, or how we structure our team, our sales team. So this idea has actually come from a book called Predictable Revenue by Aaron Ross. And this is just a little bit of a picture of the book, right? And this talks about how the team are specialized in their roles within sales. So just to give you guys an idea, for example, at the left side, you have the outbound reps, or sometimes we call them the sales development reps. They are the ones who go out and find leads, right? They're going to find customers, potential customers. And we also have market response rep, right? Those are inbound leads. Anyone who have been through like a webinar, anyone who have been through some sort of a free sections or free gift, free things, email subscription that they sign up, they will be inbound leads, but they never mention anything whether they are interested in buy something for money, right? Whether they want to put money. Usually these are the ones who are maybe attending an event that you show up, that they have shown interest in some sort into your product. And these two guys, what they mainly do, these main two roles, is they qualified people or potential prospect that could become a actual customers. So eventually they will set an appointment with the account executives where they would actually take inbound calls with the filter that the outbound reps and market response reps have done, and turn them into customers. So they have a lot more qualified opportunities, so they don't spend time with its unqualified opportunities, right? So they can just do that themselves and close the deals. And once they do that, they will pass it on to customer success or account managers, or they call it the farmers, which they could potentially do cross sales, meaning that if your company is offering more services, they would be the one who can do the cross sales, generate more sales for your company. Or they also the one who are kind of maintaining the relationship with the existing customers. That's what they do, right? And the reason why I show you guys this is how I structure my team, and this is how I use stats to track against these guys. And majority of what I'm going to share is the outbound side of things, like these two, the outbound reps and the marketing response reps. Part, what do I track? So again, what's get measured gets improved. Anything that is measured, put into a spreadsheet and look at that. So what I did, although I have 20 salesperson, well, it's fluctuates, sometimes 10, sometimes 15, based on different time of the day, not the day, but of the months over the time that I was with the team. We have daily metrics that we track, right? So what we did was that we have a daily accountability form. It's like a very simple form that we use. we use jot form, and we create basically, we basically ask the sales reps to put in the numbers of these things. So focusing on the main activities that will affect their sales, right? So for example, activities would be calls, number of calls they made daily, number of emails they sent. Sometimes depends on the strategies. Now, this is a very general way of looking at this, but I would always suggest you guys to think about what are the sales process that you have, and then track the metrics from there, right? So should be the framework that you use. These are just examples that I'm showing you of what we track based on the process that we use. So number of calls, number of emails, number of texts, and eventually once they have qualified appointments, how many appointments have they set for the account executive, or we call them the AE, and how many of them actually show up, right? From there, you can tell how good the salesperson or this SDR or sales development reps are doing, right? Out of how many activities it converted into appointments, and how many appointments turns out to be a show up, right? Sometimes you send an appointment, people can ghost at you, right? The prospect can ghost at you. That will also reflect on how good this SDR is to help out with the team, with the AE, to make sure that they have built a good relationship with the customers, not just randomly set up appointments. So are they good at qualifying the prospect so that they have the relationship, they trust the SDR, and they'll show up on these appointments with the account executive, right? So I also look at these stats in a team way, right? What that means to me is that if I, over maybe a month or 2 months, I start to get some stats, I add all the days together, and then I get an average of, out of how many activities does it take for me to get an appointment set, right? And out of how many appointments set do I get a sale? Then that way you can tell two things. One is how many sales or how many sales rep do I need, right? With 5 people, I get 5 sales a month. Do I need to scale it, or do I need to change the sales rep that I work with? So you can kind of play around these numbers, and these are really key for us to track. Okay, and also another thing that we look at a lot is the email templates that we send out, right? Sometimes, so just a disclaimer, right? Just going back to this structure, you can see that marketing is not part of this. I saw some questions here about kind of the lead coming in, the marketing leads. Now, this assumption that you have a marketing department in place, that they're constantly putting in funnels, you know, that they could put inbound leads in. So those are for the MRR, right? Market response reps. But this also applied to outbound reps, right? These are the guys who go out to the battlefield and find enemies to shoot at, right? These guys are, enemies comes into the fence, they want to attack us. They're like, okay, good, I'm gonna shoot you, right? Anyways, so when I talk about email templates, I'm talking about more for the outbound reps, right? If they were to send out certain emails to hook. Now, this is arguable, that is that a marketing job, or is that a SDR or a salesperson's job? In my opinion, it's both, right? Marketing can't always create all the emails that you need. Sales should be able to be very competent in not only verbal communications, but also in text. Like, you should be able to communicate that in words, that you don't have to always lean on the marketing to tell you what exactly you have to talk about, right? So effectiveness of email templates of SDR, what they use, their open rates, their click rate, and the response rate. That's always the 3 things that we could tell whether it's good template or not, and how they can improve. And I've been working with a lot of SDRs themselves to find what's a good email templates, and we always evaluate. These are the stats that's very important, because again, you can send out thousands of emails, but if you don't know what works and what doesn't work. As a startup founders, as you guys, right, nothing is perfect. You always need to find a way to improve. So these are the stats that are some examples that we use to track that have helped us on improving over time. Although we're so new as a team, although we're so new as what we need to do as a team, but having the stats would definitely help out on us with what we need to improve in terms of getting more people, improving the conversion rate, improving our sales templates, stuff like that. So just kind of relating to you guys more is that really look at your current sales process that you guys have and find key activities that you guys do and start putting numbers on it. And have, if you're the closest yourself, start looking at like, okay, today I have, I made that many calls, that many emails, that many texts. Just that little habits can help you so much in the long run. You don't need to use like a fancy HubSpot CRM. Like you can just use a spreadsheet. Like even for us as a team, we just use a spreadsheet. We just basically put these at rows and we have days as columns, and then we just track those stats, right? Add them together and see it over time. And just put some graph. You can see your activities. You know what? This reveal a lot of what we think about the team is doing too, right? You can start seeing finding some trends. Like, oh wow, weekends nobody is making calls, or out of all the activities, somehow the salesperson not picking up calls. We're sending a lot of emails, sending a lot of texts, but they're not picking up the phone for some reason, right? These would be starting to see these questions you can ask to start seeing like, okay, what's going on? Is there anything that we did not see that we can learn from these numbers? Okay.
Right. We've got a few questions.
Yeah.
This metric, is it just for B2B or is it also for B2C?
Both. B2B, B2C. B2B, I would say it's B2B might be a little bit more different in the sense that you need to be more specific with your sales process, because B2B, you will need to do more, you need to talk to more people. Like usually the person you talk to, they're not the decision maker, or they're not the sole decision maker. So the numbers you have to track might be a little bit different. B2C, you can just keep it as number of calls, number of emails. Now I'm not very experienced in B2B, but when I'm thinking about B2B side of things, it's really, you need to think about who are the stakeholders to make that decisions and go from there, and what kind of metrics can you track.
Okay, so another question is there a measurement of the number of follow-ups that like a person should do, the magic number of follow-ups?
There's no magic number. Every organization have their different magic numbers. What we found is that it's more important that you look at the open rate response rate more, like how you guys are following up, than what is the, like, when do you give up, right? I guess that's the question. When do you give up and let it go? I think
did I hear something about like usually if people don't respond like after 5 to 7 emails, then it's kind of gone?
It depends on the situation. Like you don't want to put this as a box. You don't want to put yourself, oh, I must send 5 to 7 emails, or I must give up after 7 emails. I'm not a believer into that. My belief is it depends on case by case. If you are the real doctor, if you know the customers, if you know your patients well, you won't say like, oh, I'll only follow up 5 times, 7 times. I will always think about, okay, is this time of the year the best? Is this time of the year is the best time to follow up? Then I'll do the follow up. Like, why do I have to put myself in the box saying like, oh, well, after 5, 7, then it's done. So this is more of a outbound focus kind of mindset. I can tell you that, because maybe it's also you have to know about the industry really well, right? Industry could a little bit vary. So again, it applies to every industry. Is the timing when you send the when you send the email, and the context of your email. If your email is just like a random like, hey, just want to follow up, how's it going, man? Right? Then like it's not about the number of emails anymore. It's the quality of the email that you're sending, if that makes sense. Rons?
Yeah. And then with another one, I think the last question on this session, because we've only got like 10 minutes left. What sort of questions could we ask to know if the person is interested in getting our solution before we give up?
What sort of questions?
And
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll give a very simple answer for that is make sure you ask the questions that shows that you know them already. Like you don't want to ask the generic questions. If you think about it, if you just ask like, hey, do you have this problem, right? Like it just sounds like a salesperson. Then it doesn't matter whether they're interested in your solution anymore. It's just, you're not. So think about the questions that could customize to that person, especially for B2B, right? You're talking to business owners. If you just start off with like, hey, I'm ABC from ABC Digital Marketing. This is what we do. Are you interested? How many of those questions do you think they get, right? So how can you customize? How can you do your research on that person, on that prospect before you even talk to them? That is really key, and how you present yourself as an expert in front of them, not just a typical, I'm just gonna see if you're interested, that kind of salesperson, right? Yeah, that's my answer.
Yeah, I think this situation also applies when we think about like how many just pitching emails that we receive every day without, and the emails that we receive, they don't actually know us. They just kind of show what is their product, and that's kind of it. And that's why the response rate from that is low as well, is because it's just out of a blast. So maybe to work on, I don't know, customize a little bit with your outreach message.
Yep. Okay, so moving on to some outreach strategies that I've come up. The reason why I'm sharing this, I really believe that outreaching or outbounds are still the most predictable and consistent way to get sales. And I think a lot of you can relate to that. Sometimes, you set up a funnel, right? Sometimes it works like great. It works for 3 months, and all of a sudden, like Google ads, switch off your ads. Facebook, compliant issues. They don't like the wording that you use. They shut down your ads. Or for whatever reason, the ads that doesn't work anymore, and you have to react to it. How predictable are you with that, right? So outreaching, outbound, to me, is always the most predictable and consistent way to get sales. So I want to share some strategies that I feel would help, that also help my team a lot in terms of the outreach strategies that they have. And the first concept is time management, right? I'm sure this is something that everyone here would relate to. This is, I have so much to do. I don't know how to prioritize. I don't know how to do, right? Time management for sales, even for a full-time closer, how do you outreach to the most amount of people with the most quality of the calls? Time management is extremely key. And based on the books, right, predictable revenue, a good sales development rep, they make at least 70 calls a day. 70. Right? If you think about that, 70 calls, how much time are you putting in per call, and how much quality do you need for each call in order to get, right? So golden hours and platinum hours, I got this idea from the Fanatical Prospecting book. It basically tells you to separate your calling hours, which they call the golden hours, and the preparation hours. I call it the preparation hours, or the platinum hours as referred in the book, which means that every day you will spend a chunk of your day, you did nothing but calls. Like basically you do nothing else. Like literally, you don't update, like you probably still update the notes, right? Put a notebook or whatever. But all you do is just picking up the phone and call, next. and you do all the preparation ahead of time in your platinum hours. So just to give you an example, right? Day one, I will use my preparation platinum hours to go through all the prospect that I do, put some action items, some questions, something that I need to do. Maybe it's a follow-up, maybe it's the first outreach call, maybe it's maybe it's some other things that you need to do. Put some action items that you need to do, put in a list, maybe 50, 70 contacts that you need to do, and that's all you do. And then day two, you'll find that golden hours that you have, maybe three-hour block. Some people like to do 2-hour block 2 times a day. Some people just like to do it all at once. And you just go through that list and just call. Nothing else. Laser focus. No distractions. Nobody can disturb these hours but yourself making calls. And this is very crucial. And not a lot of people see this as a very important thing. When you're not implementing this, what you're going to do is you call one person, you don't know how long you need to take. And then, you spend a good hour. 1 hour out of 24 hours, you're losing a lot of time. If you put 1 hour on a prospect, you can only make 24 calls maximum per day, right? So think about that. How can you make the call as efficient as possible within these golden hours? And just be very concise and very purposeful of a call. And that you will make so much more out of that, right? And the second point I want to make is having social proof of who you are, right? For founders, right? If you don't have a website yet, make sure you polish your website. Make sure that stands out of who you are, the missions, and also who you are as a person, right? If you're a salesperson, show who you are, who you genuinely, like you're not selling something, but what is your expertise? What is your knowledge? Share articles that shows who you are. Even write articles yourself. That is even better. Not only sharing other people's articles. Take videos of who you are. Sharing some thoughts. Involve the community. Right. That's why you guys are here. Right. You guys. This is a way to do some social proof for yourself. Is that hosting sections, hosting some community work. That would give you a lot of credits who you are, and when you sell, prospect already know who you are, and they can relate to you so much easier. So you've done a lot of pre-sale. That's what I call. Like before you even talk to them in person, they already know who you are. They don't have to talk to you like, okay, let's go straight to business. All right. You don't have to justify yourself all the time. Oh, this is who I am. This is what I do. Right. Last but not least, not only practice your communication verbally, but also in words. That's something that I talked about on the previous slides, is that you will send out emails, you send out texts. Like communication in words could also be different than how you communicate verbally, right? You want to sound more concise. You want to hook them with words that you use, and that could help you so much to stay that consistency in your professionalism across the buyer's journey, right? You're not just talk, but you also have a very dynamic way of communicating. Okay, that's it for this part. Any questions?
Yeah, we've got one interesting question. How important is self-branding for founders to close sales? Oh, this is a great question.
This is a very great question, and I think a lot of people here could probably speak that better than I do on this part. I'm not a founder myself, but showing who you are, like your personal reputation. Again, back to the concepts of pre-selling, right? If someone already know who you are, how you show yourself, when you talk to them, they don't have to speak too much. They already know who you are. They can speak so much about you already. So you don't have to spend all the time to talk about, this is who I am. I'm like the number one, I don't know, number one business in this industry, in this area. Like you don't have to talk any of that. You just go straight to business. And this would make so much easier for you to do the selling. Like if it comes to sales, it definitely helped me so much.
Yeah. I think another thing is when you think about and observe about like the people or the brands that you follow on your social media account, do you follow a person more, or do you follow a brand page more? Like, do you feel like you're more connected to a person more, or do you feel like you're more connected to a page more? um, and that might also give you an answer, just because like when you are the founder and you are sharing about kind of like some of the background story of what you're doing, why you're doing this, people will get curious into like your process and how you structure this, how you come up with this, and you know, story sells, right? So
Yeah,
it
that's
could
a
be one
very
of the,
valid point.
yeah,
Storytelling is a big thing. Like,
yeah,
I'm a big believer that in this time of the year, with the COVID, with the economy breaking down, a lot of things will change. And what that means is that whatever that works before currently doesn't work anymore. Meaning that I think it's the time that you can show who you are. This is the best time to do it. Like, there's no other better time, because before, if you show yourself, people are like, oh, what is this guy sharing? But today, people are in that mode of, I need to find a solution for myself, right? So they will go online so much more than they used to be. They would go to like LinkedIn. Something that we recently found on my team is that LinkedIn connection. We got everybody just saying like, wow, recently we got so much new LinkedIn connections for some reason, right? So what that tells me is that people are so much more active in social media now. And how can you show yourself? How can you
yeah,
promote your, well, I won't say promote your business, but promote your expertise, promote your knowledge is actually very key. Because that would give you so much credit when anyone really interested in that part of knowledge, you know, they will stay with you forever. It's like a social capital, right? You don't need to sell them right now, but in the future, when it comes down to your pipeline, you're like, okay, this guy followed me in social media for 10 months. Do you think it's helpful to, in compared to anyone who just don't know who you are? That's a huge difference.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody wants to also turn on the camera and like ask the final few questions, because we are almost coming to an end of the session. I have to make a move.
Between promoting yourself as a brand or your business, which is more beneficial? I would say definitely yourself as a brand. Branding is the most important thing, because again, it depends on what you do. I guess it really depends on what you do. But I always think your personal reputation is much more important in terms of sales than the business, uh, unless you're already very well established business. That's an exceptional case. Like if you're already at Apple, if you're already like a Google, then you don't have to say anything. Like your brand already talks everything. But if you're just a founder, you're just newly started, then who you are is so much more important than your brand, until your brand becomes bigger to a certain point. So I really think promoting yourself as a brand is much more beneficial. What's easy, B2C or B2B? It depends. It depends on what you do.
Need
Depends
a
on the
lot more
product.
context.
I wouldn't look at whether what's easier, but more of what do you believe in more, right? Back to the identity. What do you resonate with? Because if you don't have the belief, if you don't resonate with the product, it doesn't matter if it's B2B or B2C. You won't do good in that sales, hands down. Sometimes you're pretty sure you always lock the deal after multiple calls. However, at the end, you lose on the money. Is it a good idea to take such project just because you spend so much time? Now, I'm assuming this is a deal that involves a B2B, right? B2B turnover time is longer. And here's the thing. B2B sales is challenging in the sense that that's what I'm talking about earlier, is that you need to know who are the who are the decision makers. And sometimes, you know what, there's always an element that you can control, because there's always that friend, there's always that part that you don't see, that you might think like, oh wow, I'm so close to getting that deals, but in reality that person actually have like 5 different other options. So what you can only do is, how can you identify your competitors as good as possible? How do you position yourself so unique to that business as much as possible? And that's all you can do, right? There's focus on what you can control and focus on what you can't control. So when you're asking like, however you end up losing on the money, is it a good idea? Like, you have to ask yourself, does it worth your time? Does it worth your energy to research and get a deal? And what does that mean? What is the worst case scenario? What is the best case scenarios? And can you take the worst case scenarios, which is what you said, losing money or losing the time? Can you afford it, right, before you do it? So that's something that I would think about. But I would say, don't stop doing it because it's difficult. Like, everyone are finding that magic pills, everyone finding that thing that, oh, if I do this, I'm gonna get the deal. Like, no, nobody can guarantee any deals. But it's more of, do you believe that this can help them? And are you always improving? Are you always just looking at things that you can improve so that your conversion rate can go higher, can go bigger? So that's how I would think about that.
Right. You want to also go over, like, you have some book recommendation?
Yep, I'm just gonna quickly spend a good minute or two to talk about this. So the ideas that I got majority of the time come from these 2 books, and I call them my Bible. Like, my team, we talk about this book all the time, because every time we go through these books, not once but multiple times, you always get something new from this. So first book from the left, Fanatical Prospecting, talk to you a lot of how you build pipelines, how to time management yourself, how do you prospect, how do you get new sales, new leads. And this is more of the technique side of things. That's how I see it. Right side, more theoretical, how you scale your business, how do you give more predictable revenue. So more theoretical, Predictable Revenue by Aaron Ross. Very useful books. I would always review these 2 books all the time myself to get more inspirations. And sometimes, as I said, for anyone who, sorry, who's this?
Anybody saying something?
Okay. Anyways, yeah, these 2 books I'll recommend anyone who are going to sales, or even as a founder, right? If you want to know more about this, how it works in the sales world, these 2 books can give you a very good idea, I would say. What's best for a founder? Do sales themselves or get salespeople on board? This is a good question. I think initially you would need to do the sales yourself, because if you can't do the sales yourself, you can't teach a salesperson to do their sales. That's hands down. So you have to do some sales yourself. You have to show by example, because that's how you understand things, like what is missing in your product as well. So you have to do sales yourself. Unless you have a really good partner who clicks with you, who is really good in sales, but also knows you very well, then maybe that's an exception. Then you can help them to lead it, right? That would make sense. It's for founders, self-branding is key. People will ultimately buy in your dreams when they see it. Yep. So representing your brand is very big and it's essential. Yes, agreed. Okay. Well, type in the chat. Is that kind of helpful for you? Like, whatever they share.
Yeah.
This is kind of like one major presentation that I've done myself, but really speaking a lot from my own experience and the learnings that I have with the team.
Yeah, I think we are coming to, we've overrun about 8 minutes. Anybody wants to like turn on the camera and just share some thoughts, and also maybe sharing about like what would you wanted to listen next, or any other particular question that you have about sales. or any scenarios, case that you wanted to share?
Hi. Let me share something. Oh, let me see.
Yeah,
My camera on?
let's.
So basically, right. Recently, we kind of like launched a new product. So it's an SMS product, school management system for schools and high schools, universities right here in Nigeria. So I noticed that me going out myself to do the sales actually brings more results. Why? Because just as Felix just mentioned, as a founder or as the person of the business, you need to know everything about the business. You know, you ultimately know a lot of things about the business. So you pitching to your clients makes more sense because when you have another salesperson who is working with me, but he needs to learn from my own perspective and he needs to see the way I'm passionate about the product. If salespeople don't see how passionate the founder is about the product, they ultimately wouldn't be motivated also to doing it. So I think it's very necessary for the founder to be very passionate about and never give up because I call in some schools and they actually give me a reception to listen and to okay provide the product for them. But most of them actually stated it's actually because of the persistence. Okay, the way the founder keeps on calling them, keeps on calling them. So most of the school says, okay, now this is the reason why we actually give you the reception to come to talk to us. And your salesperson seeing that gets you to be motivated. If not, then it's very hard to motivate a salesperson. For that's my own experience.
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you for sharing. And Shamin, is it?
Yes.
Um, you wanted to share about like what was happening with your case, your customer?
Yeah, so can you guys hear me? I'm sorry, there's a lot of noise here.
A bit.
Yeah, so which is why I typed it here. If you could just read it through for me, Bronze.
Okay, okay. I thought you wanted to share, use the voice. So sometimes my customer would tell me once this job gets done, we have a lot more in the pipeline. I don't buy that and focus on the sales at hand. Is that the right approach?
100%. 100%. I don't trust any prospect, whatever they tell me. I see what I see. Right? I believe in myself and I see what I see. So yes, focus on the current sales and relationship is the most important thing as well. Right? You're not pushy, you're being the doctor again, right? Like, and sometimes you know what? Prospect are just giving you false hope, right? All the time. They'll give you like, oh, okay, yeah, that looks pretty good. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, I'll think about it. Yeah, that sounds really good, actually. Wow, that's good, right? Sometimes you have to get an idea. Are they trying to push you away, or are they really interested, right? But neither way, you have to show that you're professional. You are not there to close a sale, but more of offering what they need. Always come from that angle, despite whether it's your product or not. That's actually a very critical. Like, you don't always want to connect their problem with your product because that way they'll always associate that you are freaking selling me stuff. You're not offering me knowledge, right? So when during your communications, always share something that has nothing to do with your business. That would be something that would be helpful as well.
Cool. Any last final question? Otherwise, we are going to end this. Shah, do you have like the Facebook page replay session that you can share the link? Someone was asking me about if there's any replay session for the slides because they have to go. Is there any more question for Felix about sales or about something else?
Time flies.
Yeah, it's been 1 hour.
I try to keep it short.
1 hour.
Still.
Yeah.
Felix, are you what's your LinkedIn profile?
My LinkedIn profile, you can search me. If you search me at Felix and then YHLI, yeah, you should be able to find me on LinkedIn.
Let me pop it in. If anybody also wanted to just share their LinkedIn profile and get connected with everyone, and also
Yeah, I've
pop
typed
that
into the
into the
chat.
chat. Yeah. Yeah, I think I see some of you have already found me. Super quick.
Okay, I think that's a wrap.
All right.
Cool. Cool, amazing. Thank you everybody for staying, and only got a chance to see some of you. Hopefully we can see a lot more of your faces next time. Maybe it's too early or too late for this session, but I hope it's been helpful for you, and just whatever ideas that you take from this session, just kind of pick one thing or pick two things and just test it out right away. And also the 2 books that Felix was recommending, I think it will definitely help you to grow your sales process, improve your sales process,